I keep straining my ears to hear a sound. Maybe someone is digging underground. Or have they...
We already know about the Haitian Revolution in 1791 that has been well documented and highly publicized by many scholars, black activists, and even modern YouTube revolutionaries. The masterful uprisings by kidnapped Africans stands out as an influential model and blueprint for all oppressed nations of people looking to gain their independence, freedom, and liberty. This wasn't spontaneous at all, but rather a culmination of the many rebellions and uprisings on that island by combined forces of the natives who were already there and the kidnapped Africans who were imported there by greedy Europeans. Let's take a closer look, fam. In 1492, Christopher Columbus stumbled on what is today called the island of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. He originally thought he landed in India, which he was commissioned to go to and funded by Queen Isabella of Spain, thinking he would bring back gold and riches. He would soon realize that there was not much gold in the Caribbean. So to justify the funds and the soldiers that he got from Queen Isabella of Spain, he decided he would be able to make a profit off of the Indians that he captured during his exploration of the Caribbean. This was also a failure. Not only did most of the Indians die during the voyage back to Spain, but when they got there he found them hard to sell because they weren't equipped or suitable, as they say, for hard labor. And he would find that Queen Isabella would push back harshly and did not want to enslave these Indians. However, this would be the first time slaves were ever sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. Not Africans, but indigenous Indians of these Caribbean islands. Queen Isabella would eventually order that these Indians be sent back to their homeland, and she also made a decree that no one in her kingdom were to enslave, capture, or hurt any of these Indians unless they were cannibals, which she was told in various tales that they would eat her royal subjects and also resist their Christian teachings. So this would be the justification of continuing to sell some of these Indians as slaves, because all they had to do was say they were cannibals and they were home free. But just to backtrack and show the type of people these men were who were with Christopher Columbus as they stumbled upon this island of Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Christopher Columbus went back to Spain for a year. He didn't come back until a year later. But as he was gone, his soldiers that stayed behind, they would enslave Indian women and use them as their personal sex slaves, causing the once peaceful Tainos to now be at war with the settlers that came to their island. After a few years, the colonists from Spain that were on the island got a little homesick and wanted to get back to Spain. So as a going away present, they each got one slave to bring back to Spain. Needless to say, Queen Elizabeth wasn't too happy with this. By the early 1500s, Spanish colonists would complain about the lack of labor and would commission King Ferdinand to give them some black slaves to be imported from Castile or southern Spain and Portugal. An example of this can be found in letters written to the king or the Spanish crown by Diego Colon, who wrote to King Ferdinand about this shortage of labor at the end of 1509, explaining that Indians found it very hard work to break the rocks in which the gold was found. The king was annoyed. Only in May he had given carte blanche to Colon to import all the natives from the neighboring islands that he wanted. By January 22nd in 1510, King Ferdinand gave the authority for the first 50 slaves to go to Hispaniola for the benefit of the mines. They had to be the best and strongest available. 3 weeks later, on February 14th in Madrid, the new bureaucracy in Seville, which is South Spain, managed Spanish maritime activities asked to send another 200 slaves as soon as possible to be sold in Santo Domingo. The importation of African slaves from southern Spain would soon be outlawed, as we see in a letter from Nicolas de Ovando, who asked that the importation be suspended since they not only seemed to be taking every opportunity to run away, but were encouraging the Indians to rebellion. They would now start the importation of African slaves straight from their slave ports in Ghana, Benin, and Sao Tome, to name a few. A document in the Archives de Indias shows that to carry out the king's plans, 100 black slaves were brought in Lisbon and sent to Diego Colon in Santo Domingo, for he was to organize the sale there. Another 100 were sent direct from Seville on the Trinidad as part of an expedition led by Diego Nasusa, a conquistador who was lost at sea off Panama, though not before he had delivered his slaves. After this decision by Ferdinand, a few black Africans was sent every year to the Americas, perhaps 50 annually, and usually in ones and twos. Eventually, by the 1520s, the island of Hispaniola would stray away from the gold mines because they found a bigger profit in sugar mills. For example, Cristobal de Tapia in 1522 applied from Santo Domingo to import 15 slaves to work on his new sugar mill there, a vertical 3-roller mill powered by oxen. By the 1530s, Santo Domingo would have the luxury of 34 such mills, all worked primarily by Africans. These were all major ingredients in what would become the first major slave rebellion of black Africans in the New World, which took place in 1522 on the island of Hispaniola. There was another rebellion in Santo Domingo in 1533 when the few surviving local Indians rose against the Spaniards under a chief known as Henriquez, and many Africans joined them. The guerrilla war lasted 10 years. A similar revolt took place in 1527 in Puerto Rico and 1529 in Santa Marta. All of these rebellions were in the end crushed brutally, but in all these instances, a few Africans escaped into the forests and mountains of the New World, only to emerge later in what is known as the Haitian Revolution.